In the East Midlands, thousands of council staff across the region are under threat of redundancy. We'll be hearing from the leader of Nottinghamshire County Council, where 800 jobs are going. And we're also calling in a few of our police and crime commissioners for further questioning.
1 year on, have the police and crime commissioners made the impact that the government hoped they would? We've come to Derbyshire to find out.
Hello, I'm Mari Ashby, and joining me in the studio this week is Micheal Mullaney, a Liberal Democrat councillor for Hinckley and Bosworth and the parliamentary candidate for Bosworth, and Paddy Tipping, a former Labour MP and now the Police and Crime Commissioner for Nottinghamshire. And Paddy, can you believe it? It's been a year.
It's been a year, Mary, and it's been really good fun. It's been exciting. I've done a lot, but there's a lot more to do.
You're glad you took it on?
It's a great job, and I'm working with some great people, not just the police, but the public as well.
It's a big job, though.
It's a big job. It's a budget of £200 million. It's a reducing budget. We're going to talk about the problems of that later on.
We will in just a moment. Yes, we will. Micheal, you're trying to be an MP. How's it going?
It's going very well, campaigning on lots of issues in Hinckley and Bosworth, speaking to lots of local residents, lots of support, lots of new members for the Lib Dems in Bosworth. So things are going very well locally in the campaign.
Good stuff. Well, last week we told you the budget proposals from Nottinghamshire County Council would be grim. Now we have the full details. The council says government cuts have left it with a funding gap of £154 million over the next 3 years. Its proposals include scrapping 800 jobs and cutting back on services like trading standards and highways maintenance. It's also planning to end a grant to the Nottingham Playhouse of £93,000 a year. In addition, council tax would rise by 1.99%, the highest the council can go without triggering a referendum over its plans. Well, the Labour-run council says government cuts have left it with no choice, but the Conservative opposition says there is an alternative.
If they had done as we would propose to do, is actually look at where you can join with the private sector and put those jobs out there by 2p transfer, give people the opportunity to save their job, to actually increase their responsibilities, and maybe look for fresh fields and pastures nearby with an expanding company. And they've chosen not to do that. So at least 800 posts will go. I think the 188 notice is that's people under notice of redundancy. Will probably be something like the order of 1,800. So a lot of people are going to be very uncertain about their future. And if they really cared about it, they could have done this differently.
Well, we're joined by Alan Rhodes, the Labour leader of Nottinghamshire County Council. Let's take that point from Kay Cutts first. You could have done this differently. You could have avoided this, is what she's saying.
Well, she's wrong. She left us with a £130 million budget deficit, which we're now having to clear up. The Condem government moved the goalposts in June and created a problem of £154 million to a hole in the budget that we've got to fill. That means that we are going to have to make some extremely difficult decisions. I'm very angry about being in this situation. I'm also very sorry for the decisions that we're having to take and the fact that people will, unfortunately, lose their jobs as a result.
It sounds like you're blaming everybody else, though, for having to make this decision.
Well, I'm not blaming everybody else. The simple fact is that we came into office in May this year, we inherited a £130 million mess, and the government moved the goalposts a few months later, and we're now in the situation where we've got to clear it up.
OK, well, we hear that it's 800 jobs to go, but some of those are part-time posts, we believe. How many people really are at risk? How many are going to be affected? Kay Cutts says it could be as many as 1,800 people. That's a lot more than 800.
I think she's scaremongering. There are 800 posts, some of which are already vacant, and we're talking in terms of probably around 750 actual jobs. I mean, it's a lot of jobs, and as I said a moment ago, I'm very sorry about that. I've been made redundant twice in my life. It's not very pleasant, and it's regrettable, really, that we're in the situation where we're going to have to make these decisions because of Conservative financial incompetence of the last administration.
Micheal Mullaney,
no support from the Condem government.
You're a councillor for the Liberal Democrats. Did Labour really have to make cuts so quick, so fast in Nottinghamshire?
Well, I can speak from the perspective of the council where I'm a member, which is Hinckley and Bosworth. It's Lib Dem run. We've not had any cuts to frontline services. We've had no compulsory redundancies, and we've still got one of the top 10 lowest council taxes in the country.
How have they managed that when Nottinghamshire can't?
By effective management of the council. But also, there is an issue about some services are done at county council level, which obviously aren't done at borough council level. So if we talk from county perspective, in Leicestershire, we've got a Conservative-run authority which is proposing a lot of cutbacks. we as Liberal Democrats have said alternatives. For example, there's £99 million in the reserves at Leicestershire County Council. That money's there in the bank for a rainy day. It's a rainy day, so for goodness sake, spend it to reduce the cuts.
Alan is saying that it's the coalition that are to blame for all of this.
Well, there's lots of alternatives that we've offered in Leicestershire. Spend, some of that £99 million in reserves. There's still £1.5 million spent in Leicestershire on publicity, on things like glossy magazines. If that was cut back, it would save money. There's money being spent at Leicestershire on middlemen. For example, the council pays a private company to cut the grass, which then pays a smaller amount of money to a council.
Well, there's been all sorts of suggestions about bringing sheep in to eat the grass and what have you this week. Yeah.
But I mean, by cutting out the middleman in that, they could save money, and there's lots of other ways in which money could be saved to stop so many cuts taking place.
OK, well, Paddy, cuts to things like trading standards, that starts to impinge on things in your remit. Are you worried by these plans?
Yes, I'm worried about the plans, and in fairness, Alan's been talking to us, their officers have been talking to us, trading standards, reduction in some youth work, the hardship fund going, but we're sharing things as well. Alan does emergency planning, so does the police, so does the fire service. We're all talking together. We're sharing buildings. We're looking at better use of CCTV. So the cuts actually are making us work together and be more focused.
OK, well, you're talking about these cuts. We're talking about £50 million a year over 3 years, but your annual budget, I'm told, is £600 million a year. Doesn't sound that much when you spell it out like that, does it?
Well, it is. It's a lot of money, but we're still delivering, enormous services right across the county to some of the most vulnerable people in Nottinghamshire. It is a big budget. We still have a lot of services to do. And incidentally, on this issue of reserves, we've explained many times that we are statutorily required to carry a percentage of reserves. There are very, very few reserves that are unaccounted for.
Can you just dip into those?
No, well, not for revenue purposes we can't, for capital purposes we can, but we still have to keep a level of reserves in place. And actually, the comparisons between Hinckley and Bosworth, a borough council, and the county council is apples and pears. It's completely different. The pressures on borough councils are much less.
Realistically, do you see yourselves getting this budget through? I mean, it's a consultation at the moment. Will it go through?
It is a consultation at the moment. We will listen to people and to what they tell us. We've had an enormous number of respondents at the moment. We're very pleased about that, but we will make our decisions and we will get the budget through. We've been elected to take responsibility and we will get it through, but it is with a heavy heart.
Lots and lots of people very, very worried at the moment, council workers.
Yes, and as I've said, I've got a great deal of sympathy, and it's very regrettable that we find ourselves in this situation. OK,
well, Alan Rhodes, let's leave it there. Thanks very much indeed for coming into the studio to talk to me. Now, this time a year ago, election fever was sweeping the country. Queues formed from early in the morning as people waited to vote for the new police and crime commissioners. Well, as you know, it wasn't really anything like that, was it? Elected with just 15% of the vote. They've now been in office for a year, so what difference have they made? Our political editor, John Hess, has spent the day with the Derbyshire Police Chief to find out.
It's a year since the police and crime commissioners were elected on the lowest turnout in electoral history. We've come to Derbyshire to meet Alan Charles, the PCC, here to find out whether this new role is having an impact.
It's goodness worked elsewhere in Derbyshire, isn't it, Jamie?
This commissioner wants to make an impact. Today in the Derbyshire market town of Ripley, it's on cutting antisocial behaviour.
Right, so we're going here, yeah? You know, the pub trade's notoriously difficult now, isn't it?
Yeah. The Commissioner has a plan to curb the sale of high-strength booze. It's an idea first tested in Ipswich.
They've managed to get independent retailers of alcohol to remove anything above 6.5% from the shelves. But we think if we can implement that in one or two Derbyshire towns or maybe Derby City, it will have an impact on local people living there.
If we've got a locally elected official, perhaps take a lot more local initiatives rather than being covered by the blanket national sort of direction, it's going to be great. It's got to be a good thing.
1 year into office, and Alan Charles believes out on the streets and at public meetings, people are becoming more aware of his commissioner's role.
To find out, from my perspective, what's important to people about policing in the county, but also that they know why I'm here, what my role is, what I can do.
The Derbyshire Force has 3,000 officers and staff, a budget which the Commissioner sets of £171 million.
Do I contest the government if you're going to make further cuts to the Derbyshire policing budget? I absolutely do, yes, and I think we've had some success on that. We're putting pressure on the Home Secretary, where she has absorbed some of those cuts into the Home Office rather than passing them down to us.
And this Labour Commissioner warns of rising crime caused by the Coalition's welfare reforms.
The Home Secretary is saying that crime is falling, even though we've had all the budget cuts. She's wrong, it isn't. What we're finding now, predominantly in areas of higher deprivation, crime is starting to go up. In Derbyshire, crime's up at the moment about 3% compared to what it was last year. Now that follows 10 successive years of falling crime.
Meet the apprentice.
So it is a political position.
In fact, the Derbyshire force has 12 of them, all getting experience of a backroom police operation that this commissioner is determined to keep in the public sector.
If a large private sector company can find efficiencies in their operation here, I want to find those efficiencies and then reinvest those savings back into the public police in the Derbyshire.
The next Police and Crime Commissioner elections are in 2016. But for Alan Charles, that's a long road ahead. For him, protecting budgets and safeguarding communities is his immediate priority.
It certainly is, and we've got another police chief in the studio to join Paddy Tipping from Nottinghamshire. Alan Hardwick is the independent PCC for Lincolnshire. So, Alan, 1 year on, what difference do you think you've made in Lincolnshire?
Well, first and foremost, I'd like to say that the best thing about the job, as far as I'm concerned, is I can get out and about, get out of the office most of the time, and meet the people that I serve. What difference have I made? Our police force numbers are being kept at 1,100. We're quite a small force. They were going to go down to 1,068 under the police authority and then lower and lower and lower. I've closed a funding gap of £3.5 million. No jobs have been lost, nor will they be lost on my watch. We're trialling all sorts of new developments in technology, body-worn cameras, also portable fingerprinting
it's a
machines.
Long list of
so it's a
successes,
long list of successes, yes.
Okay,
well, that sounds arrogant. I didn't intend to be arrogant, but I am doing a job on behalf of the people of Lincolnshire. I take it very seriously, but as Paddy said earlier in the programme, I do enjoy it.
Yeah, good. Well, one of your key pledges was to get money back to Lincolnshire, which you said had been taken away by the government. Have
Indeed.
you been successful?
No, I haven't.
Right. So do you feel that you've let Lincolnshire down on that one?
No, not at all, not at all. At least I'm trying, and all I can do is do my best on behalf of the people that I serve. I have spoken personally to the Home Secretary. Basically, it's a case of, the government have their own problems. What I would like to say is leave Lincolnshire alone for a little while, because we make the best use of the little money that we have from the government. We are the most cost-effective force in the country. In fact, if every other force was run at the same cost per head as our force, the government could save £1 billion. I've told them that. Have I had a reply? No.
Funny, isn't it? Well,
Isn't it strange?
Micheal Mullaney, obviously the Lib Dems were rather sceptical about the whole idea of PCCs. Listening to what our colleague here has to say, sounds like it's working.
The big concern is the politicisation of the police force, because you've got people standing for parties. In Leicestershire we've got a Conservative police commissioner, could have been Labour. We didn't stand because we don't believe there should be this political involvement in the police force.
So he's not won you over with his successes?
No. In addition, there's the cost of running those elections last year, of whom only 1 in 7 people voted, which was the lowest in history turnout across a national election, £75 million. That money could have been spent putting more police on the streets. Hundreds more could have been
let's hear what Paddy's got
money
to say about the difference he feels he's made in Nottinghamshire. Paddy, how's this year been for you? Have you had successes too?
Yeah, I've kept my pledges. People don't trust politicians, Michael. Don't know why you want to be one. I got out of the game, but I said we'd recruit an extra 150 neighbourhood police officers. People looked at me, gone out. We've recruited them. They're hitting the streets. Plus 100 PCSOs. That's happening too. I said we'd reduce antisocial behaviour by 50%. I'm working with the councils to do that. And domestic violence has been a big issue in Nottinghamshire, and we're putting extra resources and extra focus on it, and women can begin to feel, and their children, a bit safer.
Well, that's all very well and good, but what about this week, tweeting about you're concerned about retired police dogs? Is that really a priority when crime's where it is, and worries over crime certainly are still there?
Look, we've got 26 police dogs that work for us. They work hard. They sniff people out, they apprehend people, they search for bodies. The bodies in Mansfield.
Oh, no one would deny they do a good job.
Yeah, and nobody would deny that we look after officers in retirement. They get decent pensions. Why shouldn't dogs, when they're retired,
Is this
be
for the
treated
popular
decently?
vote, though? It sounds like it, Paddy. You know, you're just doing this to be popular. People do like dogs.
People like dogs, and people like dogs to be well looked after. And isn't it right that the police officers who take these dogs home in retirement and look after them out of their own pockets
You're looking a bit perplexed, Michael.
should have their vets' fees paid? I think we just need to treat animals and people with respect.
OK. Seems reasonable.
Well, of course it is, but the police commissioners, when they were launched, there was this big hoo-ha that they'd be this big figure that everyone would identify with, would be seen as the public voice in the police and all the rest of it. Less than 1 in 10 from some polls I've seen recognise who their police commissioner is.
Oh, we're talking about that in a moment,
most people don't know who it is. Bob Jones, who's the police commissioner for the West Midlands, said he's actually doing the job. He should know. He said he doesn't think it's an improvement on the past system, and he's doing the job himself. They just haven't made the impact. And one person in a big county like Leicestershire can't make the big impact. The key thing
Leicestershire
is
and
police.
Rutland's PCC, Sir Clive Loader, couldn't make it into the studio today. We did ask him, but he says he's very busy, and no wonder, as he tells us he thought he was signing up to a part-time job, apparently, when he took this on. Perhaps he's saying that, though, because he wasn't a politician. Do you have sympathy with that?
I'm not a politician. Yes, I have sympathy with that. I work 60, 70 hours a week.
You must have realised it was a full-time job, though, surely?
Yes, I did. I certainly did.
Especially with the salary that goes with it.
I came to this with my eyes open. And, you know, the other thing that's happened in Lincolnshire is that crime has gone down by 14%. The latest figures I have just before I came here is it's gone down by another 2.7%. So that is a success, isn't it? You know, and as for being invisible, that's nonsense. That is absolute nonsense. If we were invisible, then, you know, people wouldn't bother with what we say and what we do. I get approached every single day by the media, have I got a comment to make on this, have I got a comment to make on that? They wouldn't ask a nobody to comment, would they? And as for it, you know, and as for the whole thing being a nonsense, I'm afraid I disagree with you, because isn't that democracy? And doesn't the name of your party sort of give the game away that you are all about democracy?
Yes, but policing should not be a matter. Policing shouldn't be a matter for elections. It shouldn't be politicised. It's very dangerous to have one person at the top, one person with too much power, police commissioner. You know, you can have tensions between police commissioners and chief constables that we see.
You certainly can.
You know, it's a recipe for, you know, real instability. And what we really want is local policing, people being able to contact their local beat officers, local councillors, local MPs about issues.
In the studio
they represent too big an area and people don't know who they are.
Well, we'll be talking about that in just a second, because a BBC poll has found that many people don't even know that they have a police and crime commissioner, let alone who it is. But how well known are our police chiefs in the East Midlands? Brace yourselves, guys. Des Coleman has been making inquiries.
4 faces that you should recognise. Let's see if people in Derby know Alan Charles.
No, I don't know him, but he must be a politician.
The face looks familiar, but name escapes me.
Don't clue. Is he a Labour councillor?
Labour councillor, not quite. I'm in Castle Donington, Leicestershire. Let's see if people know who Sir Clive Loader is. Do you know
this man?
This man?
No.
Now, what if I said his name was Sir Clive Loader?
Still means nothing to him.
Do you know this gentleman here?
No. No.
Tell the camera.
No.
A Nottingham landmark, Wollerton Hall. Let's see if people know who Paddy is. Do you recognise this man?
No. Who is he?
Paddy Tipping, Nottinghamshire's Police and Crime Commissioner?
No.
OK. Excuse me, if I said the name Paddy Tipping, would that mean anything to you?
No, not at all.
What if I showed you this picture?
No, nothing.
Do you know who this...
Paddy Tipping, yeah.
Paddy Tipping. We love you.
Paddy's the chief. Something to do with the police, isn't he?
Finally, I've come to Grantham in Lincolnshire. Now, surely people will know this man. He used to be a TV presenter. I'd like to know if you know who this gentleman is.
No.
No?
No.
How about you? Do you know who this gentleman is?
No, I don't.
Do you know this man?
Alan Hardwick, Police Commissioner for Lincolnshire.
Good for you. She knows him.
She does, and you got one each, guys, so well done on that.
I got 50% out of that, didn't I? 50% of the people you interviewed about me knew me.
Every little helps, so they say, don't they? But you can't surely be very impressed by that, can you? I mean, not many people knew who you were.
Let me give you a scientific survey, not
Really?
one of the BBC Vox polls. 7% of people knew about the police authorities. 70% of people know about Police and Crime Commissioner, a tenfold increase.
That's based on what you're telling me, but obviously from what we found out on the streets across the whole of the East Midlands, that wasn't what we found, sadly. But it is a serious problem here, isn't it? You know, because recognition is important.
Well, yeah, that's the whole point of the job.
How are people going to know to be able to come to you if they don't know who you are?
But they do know that. I don't know what the results of your poll are, but I'm willing to bet, no, I'm not a betting man, but I would think that most people in Lincolnshire who were asked would know who I was or who I am.
Well, what do you do about that to get the message across?
We spend all week and every day meeting the people that we serve.
I did a little count up, Mary. I've done 135 engagements with the public over the past year, and the amount of work that's coming into my office is double the amount that came into the police authority. So we're on the road. Is there more to do? Sure there is. But we're 1 year in. Right, so what you're saying is they're warming to you, they're getting used to the idea of you, and they're coming to find feels
you.
as though they're setting me on fire at some of the public meetings I go to.
So it sounds like they're having an impact, is what Paddy's saying. They know who they are, they know where to go to find them, and they're turning up at the meetings, is what he's saying.
Well, some people are going, but when you look at the populations of these areas, it's about 1 million. The actual number of people we're talking about is fairly tiny. And I looked at the Twitter followers for the two gentlemen here. I think we're about 1,000 people. Well, that's fine, 1,000 are following, but that's out of 1 million in the areas they represent. The reality is we could save this money, use it on frontline policing. We don't want to get politicising into the police force. You know, the turnout was wretched.
We'll have to leave it there, and we'll have to say goodbye to Alan Hardwick. Thank you for coming all the way from Lincolnshire. And time now for a roundup of some of the other political stories in the East Midlands this week. Here's John Hess with